Howdy, thrill seeker. Scott Page here. Some of you remember me from Pink Floyd. I'm here at Around the Piano at 216 Studio. So check us out, right? Come on.
Welcome back, everybody. Cappuccino behind the scenes here at another episode of Around the Piano with Tim Paul. Hey, listen, if you like what you see here today, don't be afraid to go to the old Google box, YouTube, 216 Creator Studios. Like, share, subscribe, ding that bell for the future notifications. We appreciate the support. Tim Paul's in the house. Tim, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Drew, what's the Cappuccino got in some news today?
It's been busy. We've been working on the mashup for the year. This is our third year? Fourth year? Third year?
I think it's our third official year.
The third official year of the mashup. Obviously, you and I are gonna sit at a table, go live with some pre-recorded stuff that we have done through time, interviewing for Let's Talk Local, some of the local businesses, supporting the help to the local companies here in McHenry County, as well as some of the talent. Because you're kind of a big deal. All the big deal talent that's out there. They come in here to the studio. They get to use our new band room. And listen, folks, if you have a band and or want to rehearse, we have a studio here just for you. We do full multi-track recordings. You can live stream out of it. You can do whatever you want with it. Great on pricing. Where do they go for that, Tim?
They can go to 216creatorstudios.com, and you can also contact us through Piano Trends. Just give me a call at 815-477-4266. We can do it by phone, but get online at 216creatorstudios.com. And seriously, that band room is really taking shape. We are really excited about it. We have local regional artist, Mackenzie O'Brien of the Mac O'Brien Band. She was just in and did some recording both for us and herself, and we're excited about that. And that's going to show up on our holiday mashup show, which is going to run between Christmas and New Year's this year.
That's correct. And all the artists are doing an original and a Christmas song. So
that's right.
It'll be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. And then you and I are jumping on an airplane with the team and going to NAMM out in California this year.
We certainly are. And by the way, I got to correct you on one thing. We're going to jump into an airplane.
Well, if we jump on it, it sounds a lot cooler because it sounds like we're a little more risky. But I'll take that. You want to go in it, I'll go on it. Whatever. It's 2 seats. I don't have to pay for a seat that way.
You don't have to pay for a seat that way. We're good.
It's all good. So I'm really excited about the guest that we have today. This music, I grew up with this type of music with my family.
We all?
Yeah, fantastic. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our
I'm really excited. This is a gentleman who is going to be appearing at the Rouse Center for the Arts in Crystal Lake on Saturday after Christmas. So tickets are going to be available and make a great stocking stuffer gift right before.
They're going quick.
They are.
This is really good talent. How do they get a hold of those tickets, Tim?
You can the best way to do it is tickets online at rousecenter.org. That's RAUE center.org. So do that. And I would now, as board president of the Rouse Center, I am excited to introduce and welcome our guest today, Elton Rohn, otherwise known as Ron How do I pronounce your last name, Ron? Ron Camilleri? Camilleri. I was close.
Yeah. Close enough.
Yeah, but that's the one thing that I have an issue with. Whenever I introduce guests, I always mispronounce their last name.
He's awesome.
Yeah. But welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure, guys. Nice to be here.
Yeah, and I know you've been at the Rouse Center more than you've been there once before, I believe.
Yeah.
And this is a return trip by popular demand. And
we played there last year. I think it was New Year's Eve we played last year.
I believe it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
it was a great night.
Do some little Elton Christmas tunes maybe in part of the show?
The weird thing is once you hit December 25th, right after Christmas, it kind of shuts down Christmas for most fans. So we can do a couple Christmas songs. It depends what we get requested, really. We have so many requests coming in already for like his catalog and his hits that we may have a full show. But yeah, if someone wants to hear Christmas, we can always do one.
Nice, nice. Well, I'll let you know. I might be the one that requests
Sure.
that. We'll see how
Okay.
that goes.
Yeah.
So, hey, Ron, give us give our audience a little background. Tell us a little bit more about Ron. And then
Well, I started my life. I was quite fortunate. My father worked for CBS Records. In the early days, it was Columbia Records. So I've had artists in my life ever since I could walk. He'd bring Bobby Vinton or Johnny Cash home, and I didn't know who any of these people were. And it was just a really young, so I would be backstage running around. So I've been around music my whole life. My mother was a saxophone player and a singer, and my father worked in the business. My brother played drums. I was a guitarist when I started, but so we've always had music in the family, and we spent most of our time hanging out with artists. So I really was kind of like a sponge, and I took it all in those early days. So what happened was Dad really got in tight with the musicians, and whether it was Gene Pitney or all those very, very early ones, he brought me in when I was like just old enough to walk. And I listened to all the music. And back then, there were no tracks. Everybody played live. Everybody was phenomenal talent. So I really learned from the best, just watching everything and watching everybody and how they did it. He took me to see Bruce Springsteen before I knew who he was, or Billy Joel's first time to come to Canada and play in Toronto. So I got to see all these artists before I really knew anything about them. And I just saw the magic of what they could do on stage. So I was always into music, but my dad said, I always wanted to work in the music business. My brother and I both wanted to do that. And my dad said, you have to go to university first. So I went to U of T and I got my degree. And after that, I went and I got a job at Warner Brothers Music. So that was the home of, Madonna and Phil Collins, Genesis and Prince and Alice Cooper, all the big stars, Neil Young. So I just got to be around music all the time. And we went to all the shows. Fantastic. I spent 3 or 4 years there. Worked my way up into sales and was fortunate enough to win the Salesman of the Year. We got presented that down in Miami. And then came back, and a couple of years later, I got an opportunity to go over and work with my father at CBS Records. And I actually got there he had 1 year left before he retired. My brother was working at Capitol Records as their in-house legal counsel. And he came over to Sony. The three of us worked together. We used to liken it to Gordie Howe and the Two Sons. We got to work together for 2 weeks before my dad retired. My brother went on to become president of Sony Music. I went on to become director of Columbia Records. And we had a really good run there of a lot of successful artists. We went through the Celine Dion years. As head of Columbia, I worked with Mariah Carey and Tony Bennett and all Pink Floyd and Billy Joel. So I just had a blast. But I think the most memorable thing that happened to me when I was a kid, Dad used to bring home albums, and that's when music meant the most to all of us, is when we're first hearing things for the first time as kids.
Sure.
And his favorite band was Chicago. So he loved the Horns. He worked with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Bobby Columbia was a good friend of his. And he heard this song on the radio. It was Honky Cat by Elton John. And he wasn't on Columbia Records, but he brought the album home. And I put on Honky Chateau. So I was just a young teen. And I absolutely ate it up. It was like my favorite album of the year. And then, of course, right after Honky Chateau, I went back and got Mad Men Across the Water. And then he came out with like, Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. And then Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And I was hooked. So my dad took me to see Elton 1973, the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour. And it literally changed my life. I was like, I want to do this. I want to do music. I want to work in the record business. And I started playing. As a guitarist, I was really fortunate that these records, and then I got the opportunity to meet the guys who actually played on it. So I would speak to Terry Kath, or I would go meet Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I would talk to them about the guitar. And they were so instrumental in just my passion for wanting to learn it. So when he brought home Goodbye Yellow Brick Road as a guitarist, I pretended I was Davy Johnson, and I put their albums on and I played all the guitar licks. Years later, I decided to buy myself a piano because I wanted to create a home recording studio, which is sort of what I have now. And in the studio, you kind of need to play keyboards if you want to really become good at MIDI and you want to do lots of recordings. So the way I taught myself how to play, I bought an upright piano and I just listened to those Elton John records that I loved. And I started playing around, and sooner or later I got it and I started playing just like Elton. And I always remember the time I was now at Sony. My brother, I just left Sony. I started writing music for television, which was always my thing. I always was like a studio guy. I loved recording. So I was writing now for television. I lucked out and I met a great woman in Canada named Melissa DeMarco, who had a show, and she was looking for music. And I had written all this music that I didn't do anything with. And we just hooked up, and she loved my music. And next thing you know, I'm writing for a documentary series. We thought it would play once or twice. It played 100 times in different languages. She won all kinds of awards. And then she called me up and said, Ron, I want you to be my music guy. I'm doing a series. So that was 2004. And the show is still going today in Canada. So that's what, 20 years I've been doing this. We thought it was going to last a year and a half. So I've been writing for television for all this time. But the day my brother called me, he was now running Can Western Canada. He had left Sony. And he said, let's get some guys together and let's just have some fun and go into a bar and play like we used to as kids. So Rick, my brother, was a drummer. I was on guitar. And we went into this little local bar. It only held 100 people, and there was maybe 30 people there. We played a set. The owner said, hey, if I throw a couple $100 at you guys, would you play longer? And everyone got on their cell phones. And by the end of the night, on a Sunday night, the place was packed. So he invited us back the next week. I came back and I brought a keyboard because I'd been teaching myself piano. And I sat down and played Rocket Man in the middle of the next week's set. And the place went crazy. And people were coming up to me and said, do you know how much you sound like Elton John? So that was kind of the genesis of how it started. Then we came back and did a whole night of Elton John. And I got invited to play a big festival. From there, I got invited to Las Vegas, and we played the Elton John convention. And we met the band, and it just took off. So I started taking it seriously. I got some sequin outfits made. I had a sequin cover for my piano made, and it's been off to the races. Now it's been like 15 years of doing Elton John. I'm having more fun than I've ever had in my life.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I know you've talked with several members of Elton's band, and they have exclaimed loudly that you're the best Elton John tribute that they've seen. Most authentic.
Yeah, it was kind of like a shock. We didn't know if they would even know who we were. And Davy Johnson, like when I went there, everyone was there but Elton. Elton doesn't go to the fan events. I guess it's a security thing. But so when I first saw the band backstage, I went right over to Davy and Nigel, and I just picked their brain about the days when they used to record, all those albums, and they do 2 or 3 songs a day when they record Yellow Brick Road. And I just said, it must have been like phenomenal to go into a studio, listen to a song, record it that afternoon, then the next day get up and do it all again until you had a double album. And they were talking about the recording process. So right in the middle of it, Davey says, you guys are like probably the best Elton John tribute in the world that we've ever seen. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know he would have seen our stuff. But I've talked to some fans, and apparently Davey and the band told them that they saw some of our, videos, and they watched us. They watch us from backstage. So that's pretty cool if that's actually happening. So they know all about us, and Davey just loved us. And we've kind of gone on from there. It's his inspiration. Anytime you get, legitimized by somebody of that status, it kind of just gives you a little bit more inspiration to get out there and keep doing it.
Yeah, it certainly does. So now you've been doing Elton for, you said, about 15 years?
Well, 15 years now, yeah.
Okay. Now, obviously, I can tell from the story that you just told what inspired you to do that. So it was the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road that made the difference.
That was the concert. It's funny because I said to this day, this is still, and I've seen, from working in the record industry for as long as we did, I've probably seen 3,000 shows. And I said to this day, the best concert I ever saw was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road in Toronto in November of 1974. And it was just before he went to New York and played the Madison Square Garden show with John Lennon. So he played that. He was at the peak of his career. He opened with Funeral for a Friend, and I was just taken. And it's funny because just last year they were interviewing Bryan Adams, and they asked him, what's the best concert you've ever seen? And he said, 1973, Elton John came to the Peony in Vancouver and did the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour, and it's the best show I've ever seen in my life. And I said exactly the same thing when he came to Toronto. There was something about him back then. It was like electricity in the air. I always wanted to be like that. I always wanted to see what it would be like. And now I get to kind of have, in our own small way, a little bit, we get to replicate it night after night.
Well, he kind of has that. obviously way back in the 70s, he had that, as you mentioned, but it goes on today. I remember we've seen Elton John 3 times, my wife and I.
Yeah.
And we saw him with Billy Joel once. And,
Yeah.
obviously the electricity between the two of those is an amazing show.
That was a great tour. In fact, when I was at Columbia, Billy was my artist. So I remember I said I was going to go. I said I'm going to meet Elton. This is before we did the convention. I started doing Elton John. This is when I was running Columbia. I said I want to meet Elton. So I went on the road. I went to Vegas, Toronto, I think Calgary. They played a bunch of shows as Elton Billy, and it was funny because Billy was there for all the sound checks and he was there for the after parties. But Elton would fly in. He didn't even do the sound check. He had someone else do a sound check. He would fly in. He would walk out on stage, do the show, and then he'd go right back into the jet and fly out. So I never did get to meet him on all those times, but but I tried, and that was a big tour. That was a really big tour. The Elton Billy's show. They were phenomenal together.
They really were. They truly were. So now, you've not met Elton in person yet, or have you now?
I've got within a couple of feet of him. My first boss at Warner Brother Records tells a really great story about how Elton John took a liking to him. One time he had to go to the airport to do a pickup, and it turned out it was the Elton John band. And Elton really, really took a liking to Herb, my boss. And you got friends, got him tickets to the show, met his wife, invited him over to England. They became really close. So Herb was going to introduce me to Elton at the show in Toronto. But they had coming, I think it was from Chicago. They were flying in and there was a storm, so it was delayed. And rather than cancel the show, they asked the audience if they'd like to stick around in the pouring rain. So it was a 2-hour wait, and he finally showed up. And he came in a police escort limousine. He got out, and I was within 5 feet of him. And he turns to Herbie. He goes, "Herbie, I'll see you right after the show." And he kind of looked at me and waved. He didn't know who I was. And he went right back, got changed quickly, and ran up on stage and started playing. Then the band came in, they played. And I always remember we were walking out to our seats in the pouring rain, and the stage manager grabbed Herb and said, no, come with me. They brought us up on stage, and we sat right above Elton for the show. So I was within maybe 15 feet of him playing the whole show. And then right after the show, we said, okay, we're going to go meet Elton. We came back down the ramp. He comes down the ramp, right into the limousine and right out of the stadium. So that's about as close as I got to meeting him. It's like I've been so close so many times.
Well, you're going to have to keep working on that,
Yeah, it's crazy. I got asked to play the premiere of TIFF, which I ended up, I passed on doing it. But I don't even know if he showed up for the premiere of TIFF. I think some of the people from the movie did, but I didn't do it. And then I got asked later, just this last year, I got approached about being in the Jonas Brothers movie, to be Elton John, to play Elton John in the movie. But I had a show that day, so that never worked out either. So I've had all these opportunities to be around Elton's people and Elton's things. And I know they know about us, but it just hasn't happened yet. At this point, it's been so many years of being him. I would love to meet him one day, but it's not going to ruin my life if I don't meet him.
Well, you've met yourself, and that's as close as anybody else can come, right?
I guess, I lead a double life. I really do. When I'm home, I'm quiet. I'm boring. I don't have much. I maybe record some music. I'm really, it's really kind of melancholy around here most of the time. I don't really do all that much. And then I go out on stage and we'll play if it's a theater or outside, we've played as much as 10,000 plus people. And everybody goes crazy. And then I come right back to the hotel room, shut it back down, drive back to Toronto, and become my old, just my lonely self here in the studio. So it's quite a life, but I get to see kind of both sides of the excitement of the industry and then the home life afterwards. It's really true what artists say about, when you leave the stage, it's like you really have to shut it down. And it comes back down, and you just become. Everyone's a normal person. It's just the way you have to handle being out in front of that many people, and then coming out and having nobody there.
So, give us tell us how you get into character when you're getting ready for a show. How far ahead of time do you start getting into the Elton John character before you go on stage?
Well, it starts in the sound check
at the Rouse Center. When will you start getting into character for that?
When I go out for sound check, I start to get into the mood. Like everything up until that point, I manage the band. I take care of all the finances. I have a business background from being at Columbia, so like I'm all about the numbers. I'm all about making sure everything's there. The stage plot is there. It's all the business side. At sound check, I start to get into the mood of playing out, and we'll play a couple of songs, and I really start to feel great about the music side of it. And then after that, we'll have a bite to eat, and we're maybe about an hour before the show. I'll just kind of close my dressing room door, and I start getting changed, and I just make sure I start warming up my voice, and it really starts to build with about maybe 15 minutes to go before the show starts. That's when I try to close my eyes and say, okay, for now I'm going to get that little glimpse of what it's like to be Elton, and I don't get nervous at all. I get more anxious than I get nervous. I just can't wait to go out there and be able to play and show people how much we sound like Elton John. So it turns out to be more of a fun night. But I would say probably about an hour before the show is when I really start to convert over to Elton.
Okay, that's excellent. It's fascinating because I have not seen you live yet. I'm still hoping to that Saturday night.
It's freaky. It's freaky. People say when my favorite part of any show is always in the first 2 minutes because what happens is the band comes out, I come walking out, and right away everyone goes, "Oh my God, he looks like Elton John." See, right now I have this goatee. I wear this between shows, but this all comes off. I become Elton, right? I'll walk out in a sequin outfit. I'll have the big glasses on, and I have the whole thing. I come out and people kind of freak like, "Whoa, he looks like Elton John." And then I sit at the piano, and if it's a song like your song, my guitarist always kids to me. He goes, "You had him at It's a Little Bit Funny." Because once I start singing, it's freaky how much I sound like Elton John. And then I have his mannerisms because all those years ago when I taught myself how to play piano, that's what I did. I play it percussively like Elton. If you give me a piece of classical music, I can only play it like Elton John because that's how I learned to play with like a piano. Is very percussive instrument for Elton when he plays it. So the combination, I look like him, I sound just like him, and I play piano and I have his mannerisms. There's that 1 second or a couple of seconds in when I sing a couple of lines and I see everyone in the audience and their heads are all turning to each other like, "Oh my God, he sounds like Elton John." And that's like my favorite part of every show.
Oh, it's fascinating. Well, I know you definitely have it down pat. You were telling us before we went on the air today, Chicago. You played Chicago right after the 2016 World Series.
Right after the World Series, yeah.
Tell us that story.
Well, I mean, we've actually been kind of fortunate that we've had these big events happen just before we go into a city. We've gone in to play like right after a Stanley Cup championship was won. So now it was the Cubs were in the World Series, and it had been I don't know how long since they'd won, and they won it. So I went to my So I went to my seamstress and I said, "Can you make me a Chicago Cubs outfit, head to toe sequins?" So we got it done. I got it made, and the band comes out. I come walking out. I had a baseball bat over my shoulder, and the crowd started to erupt. It was the most unbelievable thing. I bet you it was probably literally almost 5 minutes of them just cheering and singing, taking me out to the ball game. They were doing all of that. I didn't have to play a note. I turned to the band. I just kept smiling. They just kept cheering. Finally, I put the bat down. We went to the piano. We started the show. And after the show, this is the only problem of the whole thing. After the show, they were lined up all the way around the park. I probably had 500 people lined up for a photo. I was there for almost 2 hours meeting people. I got offers to buy the outfit. I got offers from 3 women to please come with me to a show. We'll be on national television. I got offers, from like guys would come up and say, "Oh, I want to rent your outfit. Where did you get it? I got to get one." So we started doing that now in all these different places we played. We played Kansas City after they won. So I had a Kansas City Chiefs outfit made. We've played, and now I've got a Toronto Maple Leafs outfit made, but I don't think that's ever going to work.
You never know if the Cubs.
I think we know. But yeah, but the Cubs did it. We did it with Kansas City. It's just this thing I do that I wear the sequin jackets and everything, but every now and then I'll make a sports outfit. I've got Pittsburgh Steelers. I got Kansas City Chiefs. I got Buffalo Bills. I've got, of course, we did Chicago. The Chicago was the very first one I did. It's just fun. It's just totally fun.
Oh, it is totally fun. And the audience eats it up locally. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Well, I love your Cub cap, and I love meeting.
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of these.
Canada. Yeah.
I don't even own a Blue Jay cap. Go figure. We went to the World Series final, and I have like
Whoa.
3 Chicago Cubs caps.
That was a painful ending. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got close. We got
You got
close.
very close. Yeah. Tell us something about Elton John that maybe we don't know. Do you know something about Elton?
Well,
Not
I
a
mean,
secret or anything, but
well, there's a couple of stories.
And
When I went with Herb to meet him, I'll tell you if you want to hear the story, what happened to him.
sure.
So Herb was a warehouse manager for MCA Records, so it's obviously not very high up the ladder. And what happened was he got a phone call that they needed a pickup at the airport, and nobody would go. So he had to call his wife and say, "Honey, I have to go to the airport and do this pickup." It was like on a Thursday night or something, and so he drives to the airport, and the pickup turned out to be the Elton John band. And this is right in their heyday when they were on MCA. This was like during the heyday of like uh, uh, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and he was like one of the biggest stars in the world, if not the biggest star. So Elton took a liking to Herb, and he said he was going to get him tickets for the show. He goes, "Are you coming to the show?" And he says, "Well, I'm just the warehouse manager." So, and the reason I'm telling you this is when Elton becomes loyal to someone, he stays loyal for life. So this is what he did for Herb. So he got tickets for Herb and his wife Denise, and they went to the show, and they got like front row seats in Maple Leaf Gardens in the gold section, which is better than what the record company president was sitting at. Then after the show, they went backstage. He's up against the back wall because he's the warehouse manager. And Elton comes in the room and yells, Herbie comes over and gives him a big hug. He says, "Listen, I got to do this record stuff. Come to the show tomorrow night in Montreal." And he says, I don't know. I can make the show in Montreal. And what happened is he goes, "I'll call you tomorrow. Don't worry, we'll set it up." So he goes back to work tomorrow, and the next day the phone rings. And over the PA, it says, "Herb, line 2. And he doesn't pick up. And it says, "Herb, line 2, it's Elton John." So he goes and picks up the phone, and Elton says, "Herbie, I'm in Montreal. Can you come to the show tonight?" Herb says, "I've got kids. I can't." I guess, "I don't think we can't just drop everything and fly to Montreal." He says, "Tell you what," he goes, "this is the last show of the Canadian tour. Why don't you come over to England and spend a few days with me over at the house?" So he flew Herb and Denise over, gave them first class treatment, limousine, everything to his mansion. Went in, spent days with Herb and Elton together. They became close friends, and for years, Elton John would come to Toronto, and every time he was on stage, he would say hello to Herb and Denise, and eventually their kids. And he just remained a really close friend for him. And I remember when Herb told me that story, I said, artists don't usually do that. Artists usually come and go out of people's lives. Elton has got this thing about him that when he becomes your friend, he's your friend for life. So there's that thing I've always admired about him, that he's a very loyal guy. And it's something that I know that when I worked at the record company, you don't see that every day. Artists come and go, people from the companies come and go. But when you get an artist, Tony Bennett was the same way. Tony Bennett was so loyal and he would see you and he'd come and he'd give you a great big hug. That means something. So for a guy of Elton's status to take someone like Herb and make him his friend when he comes to Canada, to me, that's like special. It says a lot about the guy. So I've always thought that Elton's got this side that he's very, very, very loyal to his friends. And that's something to be admired.
It is something to be admired. And I don't remember all the details, but I do remember back in the 80s, there was a little boy in Indiana that was suffering from, I believe AIDS, and Elton
died of AIDS.
Him,
yeah.
You all.
Elton is he's very, very instrumental, and I think he was the one who put Robbie Williams in rehab. He's very instrumental in helping his friends, and he sometimes he says the hard truth that you don't want to hear, but he's genuinely trying to help people out. He started the AIDS Foundation. He did the whole thing with he goes and plays all of these different events to help raise money for things. He's a very, very conscious guy. And as he said, he was making up for lost time because there was years when he was a big partier and he didn't do any of that. And he's making up for it in a big way. Now he's very instrumental in the fight against AIDS. And he's always taking care of the young artists. He does a podcast where he plays all the music of all the up and coming artists. He's very supportive. You can ask any of the new artists that are coming in, from Ed Sheeran to Dua Lipa. All of them, they'll all say that Elton's been very instrumental and very supportive. of all these artists in their career. It's a really good thing that he does.
It is a good thing. And in general, the music industry, most people are, the ones that people that I've come into contact with are people, they're very much like that. And they want to be there and they want to help. They knew what it was like coming in and getting into the business from the beginning. And now they're helping out the people coming up.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a competitive thing. Like there's a lot of on the pop rock side, there's a lot of competition. So a lot of times there's I want to be. I remember when Michael Jackson and Mariah Carey both had their albums coming out at the same time. There was that battle back and forth with Tommy Mottola over who's going to be #1 that week. So there was a lot of the competition side of it that I saw between artists. But then you get the genuine ones like Tony Bennett and I guess Elton. I never really worked with Elton all that much. But
right.
you see some of these artists that were just genuine people, and they really wanted everyone to succeed. It's just very heartwarming that there are people like that. So before I did Columbia, I worked a lot with jazz artists, and I'm telling you, the jazz artists are totally in it for the music. The pop rock people, there's a lot of money in pop rock. So there's a lot of those artists that they want the big tours and they want the #1 albums and they fight for it. And there's a lot of competition. A lot of times artists would come into my office and they would want to know what's going on with their albums. And the jazz artists, they just wanted to make music. But the pop rock artists, they were very competitive.
Well, it's interesting because you can look at it from a perspective that most people cannot look at it from, coming from the business side of it with CBS. And obviously you can see that. I think it's interesting the way you differentiate between the jazz people and the pop rock people, but it makes sense. It makes sense.
Well, there's not a lot of money in jazz, right? So a lot of those artists would come out, they're not going to have multi-platinum releases. So it doesn't matter who it is. When they come to town, they just want to go play. And the other thing I notice about jazz musicians is they're very, very into collaborate with other musicians, have other people up on stage and play and perform. So to their credit, people like Billy Joel and Elton John do a lot of that. Paul McCartney does a lot of that. Once they get to that status where they're, well, I will say, iconic or legends, they really open up the door for other musicians to come and play with them. But coming, in those competitive years in the 70s, there was a lot of competition between the rock bands, and it wasn't always friendly. I mean, there's all these stories about, Sharon Osbourne pulling the plug on the opening act for Ozzy, and Aerosmith not getting along with other acts. There's a lot of stories like that went around, and there was a lot of truth to the fact that it was a pretty competitive game. It's really nice to see artists that come along and start to collaborate and bring other artists on stage with them. To me, that's a fun thing. And the Elton Billy tour, when they did that, I thought it was incredible watching the two of them sing each other's songs.
It was the best.
Yeah.
So, do you have any questions here for Mr. Elton Ron?
Well, yeah. I mean, you guys are doing such a great job. I didn't want to interrupt. Ron, you have such a diverse profile, which is awesome. I guess my question to you is, if you can go back and talk to your teenage self, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I mean, the best advice I got, my dad said you have to go get an education if you want to be in the record business. I remember the first year I sat in a branch meeting and I was the only person in the room with a university education. Now, does that mean you're going to be successful? No, but it did give me time management skills. I think I was bright enough to kind of figure out the industry pretty quickly, and I rose up through the ranks. So it certainly doesn't hurt that you go and get an education. And one of the things I speak in a lot of schools about music in general and having a career in the industry, there's a lot of people that want to do it. And I keep telling them all, make sure you have a backup, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And then all of a sudden you end up working, at a fast food restaurant because you couldn't make it. About 2% of the population make it big, and the rest of them struggle. There's a lot of people that do music that just can't afford to keep it going without having another job. So what I always tell everyone, do the music for the love of music. And if something happens for you, fantastic. And if it doesn't, you still have the love of music that you're doing it for. Don't do it for a career unless you really, really think you can put all your eggs in that basket, because it's a big risk if you do all your music and it doesn't happen. There's so many people that it doesn't happen for, and you see it every day. So it's a conscious decision. So when I was younger, I was lucky I got the education. So that was the one thing. But if I would have known that the tribute market is as big as it was, I would have started it 20 years earlier.
Hmm.
I didn't start really writing music professionally till I was 40, which is weird because I always wanted to be a musician, but I went into the business side of it. Now, in hindsight, it was probably the smartest thing I ever did because I learned the business and I learned what it was like to be the head of an organization, or at least a division of Sony when I did Columbia Records, and I could do spreadsheets and I could look at the finances and I could figure out things and I could budget. So that's something that a lot of musicians aren't good at. So if I had to give advice to any musician when you're starting, get good at the numbers, get good at understanding how to do that kind of stuff, because it's going to really help you in later life. If you're fantastic at music but you can't do the business side, you're gonna fail. So you either have to go find someone who's good at business, and then there's trust issues with management and agents and everything. You got to make sure you can trust the person you're working with. But if you can do it yourself, I manage the band myself. I do all the numbers. It's like I've saved that 15% for 10, 15 years now of doing it. So I think just be smart about what you're trying to do. Enjoy the music, but make sure you have that level-headedness about what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that's great advice for, you know, anybody just getting into that industry too. And just like any industry now, like I absolutely love how you put it. I mean, listen, even, you know, one of our partners here is a basketball coach for girls basketball at a local college, and he's always preaching. He's like, hey, listen, what happens if the ball stops bouncing?
What happens if you tear your ACL? What happens?
Right. So like in the industry, the business end, there's a logistical end. And I love that, you know, if you find the right who that knows the how, not knowing the how is okay, but you have to have a trusted who, right?
And the other thing I recommend to everyone is, I mean, if you love music, there's all kinds of ways to enjoy the music industry without having to be on stage. You can go work at you can work at a radio station. You could work in television, in print. You can be a reviewer. You can be a consultant. You can be a press person. There's all kinds of ways you can, you know, indulge yourself in the industry and go have a great time with it. And there's so many people that when I meet them, they're former bass players who played in a band, and now they're promoters, or now they're agents, or now they're working at one of the theaters. I'm sure when I go to the Rouse Center, there'll be people there that are musicians, that are now tech people, and they love it because every night they're working the shows.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of ways to enjoy the industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we just did a piece on that with the president of NAMM.
We did. We talked with John Malaznik of CEO of NAMM, and we were talking about career music. And there's so many careers in music. Like you said, 2% are going to get the big stage. Everybody else.
I go to the schools and this kid says, I'm going to be the next Drake. And my answer is always the same thing. It's like, well, there already is a Drake. Yeah, so you don't want to be Drake. When I was at Sony, I used to get these tapes in from these fathers and grandfathers, and they said, my granddaughter's the next Celine Dion. And I would always say, we already have a Celine Dion. We don't want a Celine Dion. What you want to do in the industry is what Alanis Morissette did. Alanis Morissette came along at a time when everybody was singing love songs, and she turned the industry on its head with a different approach to an album. She basically did a you to everybody and said, you know, this guy's evil in my life. And she wrote a really honest album about what it meant for her in her relationship with a guy that she wasn't happy with. And that meant after that, everybody did albums sort of like Alanis. A lot of records came out copycat. You want to be something different. When Madonna came out, she wasn't the best singer. She wasn't the best writer, but she was different. And she came out and she had her own way of doing things. I think when Elton came out, he was pounding the piano in a way that was very much Little Richard. Take your influences of everyone that you've had in your past and put your own spin on it. Make yourself a little bit unique. Do like what Lady Gaga does. Do it like what Alanis Morissette does. Today's look at Ed Sheeran, where he kind of steps and he creates his whole world all by himself. Just be a little bit different, and I think that'll help take what you do that may sound like what everyone else does and make it a little more unique, and you'll stand out.
Well, Nirvana created an entire genre for doing that.
Yeah, that's. You have to be confident enough to do something that's, you know, as original as you can make it.
Exactly. But I think you're very wise. We have talked to a lot of musicians where the common denominator, if they could go back and know what to do, it was the finances. Because a lot of them, they've got the music talent and the chops.
Oh, yeah. But if you I see so many bands like that. So many bands call me up and they just say, hey, listen, you know, what do you recommend? Or I got to do this, or they're having trouble with an agency, or I have to negotiate with one of the big, big venues. When you're going to go play Las Vegas or Atlantic City, or these people, they don't screw around. Like, they know what they're doing. So it really helps to have that background. You can trust an agent to do it, but the agents are always going to take their piece, and a lot of agents are looking out for themselves. So what I decided to do is I just said, I'm going to figure this out myself, which I did. And for every show I miss, I pick up another one. So I think it works out in the end.
Yep.
But everybody's different. It depends what your skill set is. Some people aren't good at negotiating. Some people are really good at it. You take your skill set and you work to your strength, and where you find your weakness, you have to find someone to help you with your weakness.
That's right. That's right. Well, so tell me, how good was the Rouse Center in negotiating with you?
They're fantastic. I mean, yeah, I mean, most venues, I tell you, the higher up you get, usually the venues become very, very professional. It's a lot of times when you start and you're playing like the little street festivals and all that, those are the ones that can be quite disorganized.
Mhm.
And you get there and it's like 7 bands trying to play to a schedule. The worst thing you can do, we were lucky enough that we've always been asked to headline a street festival. The worst thing you can do is have a schedule all day of 6 bands, and by the time you're getting ready to go on, they're so backed up and delayed that you have to cut out almost half your show because there's a curfew at the end of the night, and they didn't squeeze everyone into a schedule. When you play the big theaters, we just played a show up at Casino Rama. They have all the equipment, all the technical, all the specs. They have multiple people. They have marketing teams. They have production teams, they have a hospitality person, they have everything all set up. It's so pro. You walk in there, you never have to question anything. It's all done for you. It's all first rate, multiple dressing rooms. It's a joy to go into some a venue that has it together. And the Rouse Center is like that for us. When we go in there, they've got it all together. I've been in touch with their marketing team. I've been in touch with their ticket sales people. The general manager there is a fantastic guy. So it's a pleasure to go play a lot of these places. The hardest part of playing the Rouse Center, December 27th, for us, I'm flying in 3 guys in the band, but I'm going to drive it because my nephew, who's our tech guy, he wants to drive it. So we have to drive in December around Lake Michigan. So that's going to be the hardest part of the show, I think.
That could be a challenge depending on how the weather turns out then. Yeah.
That's usually the thing. We're doing shows next year in Florida, and we decided for fun, because we've never done it, we're going to drive to Florida. I'm going to fly all the band, and my nephew and I, we want to drive it. So we're going to try to drive it over 2 or 3 days, have some fun, stop off, see the US. We're going to just start to, the last few years. I mean, I've been doing this now for so long. I don't know how many more years I'm going to last, but I want to see things, and I want to make sure that we go into the small towns and we have lunches in the mom and pop restaurants and stuff. That's half the fun of traveling. So, I mean, I could fly to any show I want, but flying's all the same. When you drive and you go into the small towns and you can stop off and go to these little stores, that's what kind of makes America America. And that's coming, even driving. I don't drive across Canada. We kind of fly because everything's so far apart. But in America, you can go from city to city in no time. It's so much fun for us to do it. So we look forward to seeing all the towns.
Yeah, tour bus.
Yeah, tour bus. I see a tour bus in your future. Right?
We do have an Elton Rohn. Yeah, we had someone who bought a tour bus just for us, and we put the big Elton Rohn on it. But we've never gone on. I can't get my guys to want to go on a tour bus. They're so, I think they're spoiled. They like to fly. They like to stay in hotels. Whereas myself and my nephew, we kind of like to drive. We like to experience things. We like to go out and hit the road and do all of those different things. So I guess it depends on who you are and what's in it for you. But a tour bus, it takes a big commitment. The other thing a lot of people don't know about tribute bands, some tribute bands are full-timers. My guys, some of them have jobs. So a lot of times we're weekend warriors. I'm probably one of only a couple of guys in the band that does it full-time. Everyone else is part-time. So I have to work that out too with their schedules. We have a criminal defense attorney in our band. So I've got to work it out amongst his trial dates for shows. Yeah, it's like there's all kinds of things. Every day's a different challenge. Yeah, it's crazy. We have a retired principal in our band. We have a criminal defense attorney. We have someone who works for construction unit of a cosmetic company, so he's always going off to malls and building stuff. We have someone who used to work for TSN Local Sports. He's left there now, but there's just different people. We have 2 people that teach in our band. That they teach music. So it's just, you bring all these different people together, and it's like a puzzle. You have to make it work like a team, and you got to figure out what works for everybody.
That's fascinating. So now here's a question. Do you ever do Elton John solo where it's just you and the piano?
I get asked a lot to do that. I've done it before, but to tell you the truth, the most fun I have is interacting with the band. And I'll tell you why. We don't play at all the tracks. So when I do solo shows, a lot of people will say, well, we're going to hire you to do 4 or 5 songs, and we've got 3 or 4 other artists on it, and everyone's playing the tracks. To me, that is totally boring for me to put a track on and just play along and sing. That's not what I signed up for when I taught myself how to play piano. And back then they didn't really have tracks when I first started. If you're going to be a musician, you owe it to yourself to be as best as you can be, and you'll never know how good you are if you play the tracks. So I would go to these solo shows and I would say, no tracks, let me just play the piano and sing. And that works really well for a couple of songs. But after a while, if you do too many songs and it's just you at the piano, it's like they're looking for the tracks. So I stopped doing them after a while, and I said, no, I just want to do band shows. I have way more fun with the band, the interaction, the jamming. We can extend songs when we're playing if we're having a good time.
Sure.
That's the one thing about playing live is, as a musician, I think it rubbed off on me when we used to work in the jazz department at the record company. Is you see musicians playing off each other. That's the magic of music.
It's fascinating. I love that because that's really old school. That's excellent.
Yeah, I mean, well, I grew up with my dad going to see all these artists, and they all played. They all wrote songs. They all played, and they were fantastic. And they jammed. And I used to watch Terry Kath play guitar, and he never played the same solo twice the same way. Like, it's fascinating watching these guys just be creative on the spot. I would never want to go out and do a track show or fake it or do any of that stuff. That's not the way I was taught. If you're going to be a musician, you owe it to yourself to see how good you can be. So you might as well go out there and put it all out there for everybody and let the cards fall where they may.
Exactly. Very authentic. So, Ron, let me ask you this. If fans out there want to hear more of your music or get in touch with you, how do they do that?
They can come to eltonron.com. There's a contact section in the back, and you'll see all our videos. There's hundreds of testimonials, and we invite everybody on Facebook. We're there, Elton Ron fan page. Just key in Elton Ron. There's a place for people who have seen the show, have left reviews. So far, knock on wood, we're at 100% reviews, which is great. Everybody loves our show, and people interact with each other. And I'm actually on there at night after a show, and I go on and I chat with some of the fans. So we like to be interactive with everybody. And I go back to the hotel afterwards, and sure, I'll flip open and I'll be on Facebook or Instagram, and we get lots of messages and lots of likes, and that's half the fun of doing it. I mean, we can't take ourselves too seriously here. We're a tribute act, so we just go out, we have fun, we give everyone a great night, and the enjoyment for me is coming back to the hotel and having all these messages saying, "Oh my God, wow! I never expected it to be that great. You guys were awesome, and let's keep in touch." And then they start following us on our page, and it just grows. It's just the fun part of doing what we do now.
It's the feel good story part of it.
Yeah, of course. It's the interaction. It's people, right? We would be nothing without people coming to our shows. I mean, we could sit and play in our basement, or we could go play a theater that's half empty. But when these theaters start filling up, and we're playing to all these people, and the best part about our show is when you go out there and you start to play a song, everybody's singing the words. That's how universal Elton John is. It doesn't matter where we go. Everybody knows the lyrics. And I tell you a funny thing that happens sometimes is if I screw up a lyric, I'll hear about it. Someone will send me a note and say, "Oh, by the way, I noticed on this song you said this word instead of, and it's like I think the line that everyone was that comment on is Tiny Dancer. Elton John has changed it to how I think I sang and "Oh, how it feels so real," where Elton now sings and "Oh, how it really feels." And the original recording is the way I sing it. I sing it from the original. Elton's changed it over the years. So people will comment on that, about the difference. Said, oh, I see you do it the original way. The fans are crazy. They know everything about Elton songs.
Everybody's got an opinion, and I'm sure. And I mean, listen, Elton Ron, Elton John, you already have a different word in there, and you can always reply with, that's why they call it the blues.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to circle back. We are on the back end of this right now. I can listen to you for like 3 hours. I do want to ask a question. I want to circle back to traveling on the road versus flying. Because I think it's absolutely, as a businessman, I think it's absolutely brilliant because you are getting different sighting of experience in these little small towns. And I'm hoping there's a story to where obviously you're never missing an opportunity, because you could be if you're flying, right? I would love to see if there's a story to where you're traveling and you pull into a place where you just jump on a piano somewhere.
Oh, we did it at Chicago. We were coming home from a show, and we had a layover in Chicago, and there's a grand piano there. Now the grand piano was all beat up and the pedals didn't work, but we went.
No, it's not a piano.
The piano I'm talking about. So there's a video of us online. All the guys in the band says, we should sit around the piano and sing "Candle in the Wind." So there was some guy on the piano. We walked by a couple of times and went and got a bite to eat. We came back. He's still on the piano. We came back later. There's still someone there. So we're sitting there killing time. We had about 3 or 4 hours to kill. And finally, the piano was open. So we went over to it and we sat down, and all the guys in the band got around me. And we sang "Candle in the Wind." And everybody who was sitting there having it, just all of a sudden, everyone started to turn and watch the piano. So, yeah, it happens where we do it. And it's kind of magical because nobody expects it. And then when the guys hit all the harmony with me, it's like, it's so cool. And then people look, and I remember because we finished the song and I said, thank you. And they said, that's it? You're not going to do a show? And I said, no, that's it. We got to catch a plane. So it's happened before. It's kind of cool to do it.
That's awesome. Fantastic. That is really awesome. Well, Ron, thank you for being with us. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, anytime, guys. I had a blast.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Once again, thank you again. And you're going to be at the Rouse Center on Saturday, December the 27th or 28th.
Yes.
Mary, what is it?
27th.
Show starts at 7.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
7, is it?
Available at rousecenter.org. Elton Rohn.
Can't wait. We're going to come back. All the people of Chicago and Crystal Lake, we're going to see you there.
You betcha.